Thank you very much. So now I would like to leave the room to our next speaker, which is Dr. Barry van de Poel. Apologize again from the terrible pronunciation. He's a water and irrigation specialist from the Netherlands. He works in Practica Foundation, and he's gonna talk to us about solar-powered irrigation technologies in the Limpopo basins.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me and that you can see what I'm seeing. If not, let me know. So my name is Barry van den Poel. Actually, the pronunciation was not that bad, so that's all right. I would like to thank, first of all, Giulio Castelli, because we've been in touch last year, exchanging on the different technical solutions in their project and in our project. So that's been very useful. So it's very nice to be invited for this conference. So thank you very much for that. Let me start with the presentation. I'm happy to be the third one because the previous presentations were a perfect introduction, I think. The lessons learned by Giulio Castelli in the north of Mozambique, they also apply to our project in the south of Mozambique. We also don't need sand dams. There's a thick layer of sand and a lot of water available even till the end of the dry season. So that makes it a very valuable water resource. So let me continue. Let me first introduce myself because I'm working for Practica Foundation, and we work on developing technical innovations together with local businesses in Africa and Asia. So we mainly work on three themes: drinking water, irrigation, and sanitation. And we try to, together with the enterprises, come up with innovations. Wherever we see a gap in the available technologies, we either look for it, and if it doesn't exist, we try to develop it. And in such a way that in the end it can be produced and distributed by local enterprises. And to this end, we also provide trainings and consultancy services. So yeah, you see, for example, at the left side, you see a payment method for drinking water taps, where people can pay using coins to keep things simple and repairable. In the middle, you see a solar irrigation pump, the first version. Later on, you'll see improved versions. But also digital tools, because nowadays a lot is possible. Now everybody has a phone, or almost everybody. So there's a lot of power in disseminating information and also in connecting, for example, in this case, clients of vacuum trucks for fecal sludge management to operators. That's just a few examples to show what we are working on. To give you a bit of the flavor of our organization, you see that we have a workshop in the Netherlands, but it's not that we just develop things there. There's like continuous exchange between guests from various African countries, but also from practical pilots that we do with our partners in the field. One example you see on the right, it's Engenheiro Saveka from Mozambique, who is in Zimbabwe, but we were also there to exchange different ways of making the most cost-effective water wells in sand rivers. So that's these kind of continuous exchanges are critical, so that we don't have all to go through the same learning process. So let me now focus on the IPSAR project. It was briefly mentioned by Mrs. Duker already. That's one of the labs in the A4 Labs project. So basically, we benefited a lot from the A4 Labs project, which was a research project mostly on the hydrology and the water availability and the practices that started in 2016. And in 2018, we started a feasibility study to develop packages to actually make use of that resource, once it was confirmed that the potential of this water resource is so high. We did this with a number of partners. The main local partner was the Instituto Superior Politecnico di Gaza, ISPG, which is based in Chokwe, that you can see on the map in the downstream side of the Limpopo River. We worked with Oxa, Mozambique, Acacia Water, and UNESCO IHE. This was funded by the Dutch government. So you can see here the Limpopo River. We've talked about the Zambezi before, but the Limpopo is another huge river crossing Mozambique, starting in South Africa, going through Zimbabwe. And that's the area where we came from in the presentation of Mrs. Duker. And now we will go downstream all the way to the Gija-Chokwe area. Let me show you on Google Earth. I hope it works. So we were here earlier this morning. We now came from here and we go all the way down. And you don't need to travel actually to see the Sand River, because even in Google Earth, you already see the Limpopo. And you see how wide it is and how small actually the water stream is inside the river. You see, it's a big riverbed, but the actual surface water is just like a very small snake in the big riverbed. And we'll come back to that. So this is the Gija-Chokwe area, is where we had our project. All right. So why did we start this IPSAR project? We started from the observation that many smallholder farmers around the Limpopo River cannot grow cash crops due to a lack of water. Rainfall is increasingly unreliable. And even though Chokwe is the largest agricultural production area of Mozambique through the surface irrigation scheme, we found that the water supply is insufficient and unreliable, too unreliable for farmers to make investments in cash crops. So as a result, they only grow staple crops in that scheme. So farmers really need a reliable and a nearby water source before they start to invest in agricultural inputs and their time, of course, to grow those crops. Now, the only reliable water source around is the Limpopo Sand River. And you saw since a long time, there's some large diesel pumps that have been donated to farmer associations by various NGOs. But you actually see many more diesel pumps that are not working. They've broken down, and yeah, it's always difficult to do communal management of technology. So then there's no money for the reparations, and often also no spare parts and no capacity. So individual equipment is always preferred, I think, to communal ones, because yeah, people will make sure they do the necessary maintenance and reparations. However, as you have seen in Google Maps, the river water is often too far. It's just very small, so it's too far from the fields to use small individual pumps. So that's why we decided to develop a package that includes a well point to have access to the water, and small pumps for individual farmers to have year-round access to water whenever they need it. Because that's also a big difference compared to the communal irrigation schemes. They have deliveries maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, but you cannot decide yourself. And that's very important. So to this end, we did experiments with different drilling methods. You've seen a few drilling methods in the previous presentations. Here you see a few more, just simple augering, water-based methods where you inject water with a motor pump into the sandy soil. Well, the other methods I'll show in a bit. We did all these experiments because we really wanted to look for the most suitable technique for these areas, and especially at the lowest cost, because that's critical if we want the solution to be able to upscale in the future. And it needed to have sufficient capacity to irrigate, if possible, even a hectare. Now, let me show you two videos. I hope there's not too much delays about the most promising, the most successful methods. And it won't be surprising that the most successful were also the most simple methods. So one is just hammering down GI pipes that are widely available everywhere. This is our colleague, Engineero Baduyu from ISPG, and our colleague from Practica. As you can see, actually, it just goes down. Now, I must make one remark in the... Let me wait till the video and the wind is over. Won't take long. Well, you can see how fast this method is actually. Yeah? It doesn't take an hour actually to install this. Now, a big difference compared to the area we saw in the presentation before is the water depth, because in the upstream part you had water sometimes within 10 centimeters. But here in the dry season, you will find the water only at 5 meters depth. So for that reason, you need wells of at least 7 meters depth to use the water. So this was one method, let's call it hammering. And then there was another, the other most successful method was called baling. And so this is even cheaper because you can see it's with a PVC pipe that's available everywhere. And inside there is this tool, the third picture, which collects basically the sand inside, and once it's full you take it out, you empty it, and then you put it in again. So very simple tools that could also be manufactured locally by a workshop in Shopway. So the result of all these experiments, and we've drilled many holes, you can see a few in a row here on the picture on the right. The result is that it is possible to drill these wells manually without heavy equipment, without machines, even without working water that is used in many drilling methods. And the yields are very big. We used a big petrol pump and measured 5 liters per second. And basically the water did not go down at all. And we know the yield is more than this because this 5 liters per second is the maximum capacity of the pump and not of the wells we drilled. So that's for a depth of 7 to 9 meters. And with such a large flow, you can easily irrigate 1.5 hectares if you have the right pump. And the commercial price for a local company to offer these well drilling services would be about $100 for the PVC pipe option and $140 for the GI option. So you would say, why choose the GI option? It's simpler. The hammering, as you have seen, anyone can do it. The baling option, the $100 one with the PVC pipe, requires a bit of training and understanding of the different soil layers, especially if you apply it not in the riverbed, but in the fields next to the riverbed. Because there you will first find a clay layer and then the sand layer in which you need to install the well. So as you have seen, we also try to make them flood-proof by putting a concrete around it and topping them, and theft-proof as well by putting a lock on it. Well, theft is not the right word. You can't steal this pipe or the well, but people are afraid for example, poisoning by jealous neighbors or whatsoever. There's always reasons to be fearful in that regard. So that's the well point. Then we worked with a solar pump, the Future Pump SF2. That has been developed by our organization and is now manufactured by a company in India, Future Pump Ltd. The capacity is half a liter per second, or 12 cubic meters per day, which is sufficient for, let's say, 0.2 hectares. The cost, the advised retail price is $650. In Mozambique, it's a bit higher because of high importation tariffs mostly. And the maximum head of these pumps is 15 meters. Next to that, we also, oops, what's happening? We also use petrol pumps on the same wells. The petrol pumps, they are available everywhere. They can do 5 liters per second. Since we've also used this pump for the testing I was talking about, which is sufficient for 2 hectares. The cost is only $300 and the maximum head is 23 meters. So you will see that there's a big difference in price and capacity. So we are always talking about, there's an increasing interest in using solar pumping for smallholder farmers, but we need to realize that solar pumping is very time consuming because the flow is much less, about 1/10 of the flow of a petrol pump. So you can imagine if you irrigate 1 hour with a petrol pump, you need to irrigate 2 hours using a solar pump. On the other hand, petrol pumping is fuel consuming. So that's cash, that's money, which is a major constraint to some farmers. So it really, whether solar pumping is interesting or not, it really depends on the costs and the availability of labor and fuel. And that's why we see that in Zimbabwe, for example, there's more interest in the solar pumps because fuel is such a struggle. It's not available, it can be too expensive. Whereas in Mozambique, that's no problem. If you compare, you can also see this. I made a comparison, an economic comparison of solar pumping and petrol pumping. And as expected, for solar pumping on the left, you see that the main cost is the labor, the time you need to spend irrigating. Whereas for petrol pumping, this is of course the fuel, etc., and the other costs related to the pump. So, oops, in that case, an economic analysis shows that if you use a solar pump and furrow irrigation, it will actually be almost 2 times more costly than petrol pumping in Mozambique. Of course, this depends a lot on the cost of labor. Here we assigned a value to it, but it's not an out-of-pocket cost for farmers. So individual farmers may make a different decision. What is critical, and this is also a response to the question of Andre from the previous presentation, is also the application system. Water efficiency is what donors are looking for, but the same thing you can do is saving time, and that's what farmers are looking for. Because water efficiency, I don't think it's a big problem because we have just seen that there's a lot of water available. However, if you don't irrigate efficiently, you lose water and you lose time. And at the same time, you can imagine in the picture here, a solar pump needs to pump during the whole day. So this farmer, Senor Januario, needs to be working on the field the whole day, which is quite a burden. So there is, we have done experiments with farmers using alternative irrigation application methods. This is a spray irrigation system, which is basically a tube with holes on top, and the water sprays out of it. And it was introduced in this way because in this area theft is a problem, and as you can see on the right, the whole pump and irrigation system can be taken home every day quite easily. So that's a big advantage. But at the same time, this kind of system, and here you see it in a more fixed setup, but using the same technology, you can just switch on the pump and do something else, contrary to furrow irrigation, where you need to be present all the time. And in that sense, this can help to reduce the labor time, the efforts and costs associated with solar pumping. Another option, it's a technology that we are developing, is a mini pivot, inspired by the pivot systems of commercial farmers, but then again on a small scale, and it's purely operated by the pressure of the water. So no electronics, nothing complicated. So this is, here you can imagine, the farmer puts it there, switches on the pump,
2 minutes.
and you can go home. Yes? Okay. The total cost of the package we developed was about $100 for the well point, in case it's 7 meters, $650 for the solar pump, $50, let's say, for the spray tube, because it's not that much, and another $100 for the agricultural inputs you need. That means you can start irrigating from scratch for $900, in this case, in Macaretane. So the participatory testing of different methods with farmers taught us that actually a package must be flexible. Why? Because the specific technology that works for a farmer depends on his own preferences, the irrigated surface, the available labor he has, the investment capacity, because solar pumps are much more expensive, the number of users, the topography to see if you need a high head, etc., etc., etc. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. The field work with different partners and partners from different countries has led to various innovations and active learning for all, from technicians to farmers, students, other project partners and the researchers. And we have learned that introduce innovations, and we introduced many innovations at once. It requires intensive support and time also for joint experimentation and evaluation. Because for example, the automatic application systems I showed before, that are in theory time saving because the water sprays and you don't have to be there. The farmer there, Donna Anita, preferred to use it as a garden hose because she wanted to see water flowing. So that's important to take into account as well. People are used to a certain technology. People are used to see big diesel pumps and big streams of water. If you replace that all of a sudden by something where you don't see the water, it can take time to experience the pros and cons of that. Conclusions. It is possible to drill very productive wells in sand rivers. The material cost of the cheapest option is only $30 USD. The total well point cost is $120 USD if offered on a commercial base, and then I included transport, profits, etc., etc. So that will be a max, I would say. And it can have very high yields. You can start solar irrigation from scratch on half an acre for less than 1,000 USD. The return on investment on average was 4 seasons for the package we have shown with the solar pump and the well point, for 0.2 hectares of beans. And labor already paid for means that the cost of labor was included in this analysis. Farmers gain unique ownership and control over their water supply. And very interestingly, we found that the river is wider than it seems. That means that we didn't only manage to drill these wells in the riverbed, but also in the fields close to the riverbed, because even though you see clay at the surface, we found sand at the bottom, let's say in a few meters, and that's where we can extract water from. Acacia Water, which was also a partner in IPSAR, they did a study and showed that the suitable area for this technology is almost 50,000 hectares only along the Limpopo River. There's 148 mega cubic meters available, which is enough for almost 15,000 hectares or 30,000 farmers. And we found that the aquifers that are connected to the river have fresh water, which is good for irrigation, as opposed to hand-dug wells in the same area that were built in the clay zones that were characterized by high salinity rates. So the technical potential is huge. The challenge is the farmer business case. Anyone who works with farmers in Mozambique knows that produce prices are very volatile. The bean price in our area varies from 10 to 60 meticais per kilo. The tomato prices could even increase or decrease 10 times. Interest rates are as volatile, going from 10 to 60%, and banks are simply not interested in farmers. So we can have these nice economic cost benefit and the return on investment numbers. Banks will find it too risky, and I think they're right. So the business case is the main challenge. The conclusion we drawn was that then the equipment cost is still too high. So we are working now on developing smaller solar pumps with a much lower price, for example, to start with, and then farmers later on can move to a larger, more expensive pump. Low risk credit is also critical. If I were a farmer, I wouldn't take a loan at the bank because you risk to lose the only thing that is sure in life, that is your land. So in that sense, we believe more in so-called asset finance solutions, where basically you don't need to put your land at risk or other assets or other possessions you own, but the pump or the equipment itself is what the company can take away if you don't manage to pay back. The way forward that we are looking at now is to work with local enterprises to train local teams to make the drills, and to work with suppliers to offer different irrigation technologies and credit solutions, low-risk credit solutions. This is the last slide. Since we are talking, there's many researchers in this presentation. There's a few research opportunities that we see. And one is, I said, drilling on the farmers' fields is possible. But how widespread are those aquifers around the sand rivers? And to what extent are they connected and replenished to make sure that there is sufficient clean water all the time? Technical innovations to increase the output of solar pumps, and I would like to add to that, to reduce the cost. That is critical. How to deal with the initial investment barrier of solar pumps. We talked about it. Should we downscale pumps and the cost? Should we increase access to finance? Yeah, as said before, we will focus on the potential of private and informal approaches. And solar pumping is the most cost-effective in combination with water and labor-efficient application systems. But how to make this attractive for farmers who have the perception that you need to see a lot of water flowing, that's still research in progress. And finally, how can we use these sand rivers also for safe drinking water and livestock? These are the kind of things we are working on at the moment. That's it. Do we still have time for questions?
Thank you very much for the very exhaustive presentation. I believe it might be time for a coffee break of 15 minutes. Whoever is in need of asking us some sort of question, I know time is running very fast, so here is an idea. We leave the screen with the question copy pasted available, and so whoever is interested in hearing the answer can chat with Dr. Van de Poel during the coffee break in a sort of conference style question and answer, sort of private. Everybody else, please feel free to reconvene at 11:45, but please give me 1 second before to make just a little bit of details available for everybody. The availability of the slides for what concerns the presentation of today will be decided upon consultation with individual presenters. Thank you very much. And if there is any question to Dr. van de Poel, please, Lorenzo, you can put the Google Doc on the screen in such a way that people can chat during the break.
Okay, so I think I'll just go through the questions. I see there's a lot. Am I still? Yes, I'm not muted, right? No. What about the river dynamics? The active bed of the river still the same during the next year? Sand gravel won't cover the wells during the flood season. Yes, that's a very good question, because these rivers can become violent during the rainy season. That's also, we are still experimenting with that. So we wanted to keep them a little bit high. But it's most important is that you can find it back, because yes, it may be possible that sand is deposited on top. So then you may need to dig it out a bit. So that is the most critical. So far, of course, you can imagine that we need a couple of years to see how that really develops. So yes, that is research and learning in progress, I would see. Then is that, I don't know, I can't see who posed the question, but is that a good answer to your question? Is that clear? I can see who posed the question.
Yes, Livia said yes, thanks.
Yeah,
you can
okay,
see in the chat.
Yeah, I see. I just found it. Okay, thank you. Then next question by Andre. What is the operation and maintenance cost for the 900 USD package? This is not included. So the 900 USD package is the purchase and the installation. However, the pump comes with a warranty of 5 years. So in that sense, operation and maintenance regarding the pump, the solar pump, is included for 5 years. Now the well point, there's not much operation and maintenance you can do except for maybe digging it out in case it has been covered by sand. So that's not much. And for the application system, we chose to select to test technologies that are not very prone, not very delicate, and don't suffer from limited operation and maintenance. For example, drip irrigation requires a lot of maintenance. It's difficult. That's why it often fails. But these spray tubes, on the contrary, it's very simple. And the only thing sometimes you need to replace parts if rats have been eating on it or so. But that's something farmers can do themselves. So that's not a cost. Is that clear, Andre? Okay, then I assume that's a yes. PP asks, can a half-acre farmer afford a 900 USD package and willing to take the risk? Yeah, that depends on the person, but we agree that actually the price should go down more, the cost should go down more. I don't see much scope for the well points to become cheaper, because we have tested a lot of technologies. But the pumps is something you could start with a cheaper pump. You could start with a petrol pump, for example. That's only half or a third of the price of a solar pump. And in that case, make money to invest in more expensive technologies. And willing to take the risk. Yeah, as I said, I would never, as a small farmer, or never, I don't think I would opt for a loan at the bank where you need collateral. But there is more and more companies that supply their technologies with a, for example, a leasing agreement or other asset finance agreements. So then, yeah, no, the risk is limited. You can only lose the pump itself. yeah, and possibly part of your harvest. Is that okay, PP? Okay. Then Timon Weidkamp is asking, how did Acacia define and map suitability? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure of all the details. What I can do is, because I see your email address, I could share the report with you. What has been taken into account, I know, is the groundwater availability, the elevation, the actual land use, let's see, and the zones that were characterized by clay and salinity, because those were discarded. If you want, I can link you to Acacia to get more details on that study. Is that all right? I assume that's a yes as well. Integrated water resource management. What about wind-powered pumps instead of solar or fuel ones? Yeah, it's been years and years that we have actually experimented with that. We didn't manage to come up with a trustworthy pump, most of all because the wind is very unreliable. Sunshine is there every day. However, of course, there's cloudy periods, but they're more predictable, let's say, than the availability of wind. And next to that, yeah, we didn't manage to make it cheap and simple enough. You do see in the Netherlands some wind-powered pumps, and they work well. So yeah, there may be possibilities, but I think sun is more reliable than wind as a power source. Then Giulio, which is the space for extending the action on sandy rivers outside well-known countries? Ethiopia, Mozambique, Malawi, Kenya. I feel also Sudan may have some potential as an example, and outside Africa. Definitely. I think the scope, the presence of sand rivers goes way beyond these countries. Ms. Duker, I'm sure she knows more about this, but the potential is enormous. We have done a study on the potential of floodplain irrigation in Africa that you can find on our website. Sudan, I've never been to Sudan, so that I can't tell, but I assume, yeah, if you find the sand rivers and the water is not too deep, it will be the same. There will be a huge potential as well. Is that clear, Giulio?
Yes, fully clear. By the way, I was in Sudan for quite a long time, and you find exactly the same setting about the sandy rivers. And I think there the climate is very extreme. So I don't know. I mean, even if there is a lot of sand, how much water you can find, and actually the depth is much more, is around 7 meters. So it's not like in Mozambique that is 2-3.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting situation.
If it's 4 to 7 meters, it's still very much within access of common pumps, of suction pumps. So then I would say there's scope to use that. Also in Mozambique, in our area, it could go up to 5 meters and still be fine. So yeah, it's very interesting to test this in even more countries, I think. Okay, I'll proceed to Alphonse Gerdiou. For the Practica Technique, what guarantees the potability of drinking water? What are the measures or guidelines for users? Yeah, so the techniques that we have shown, they were for irrigation purposes. We tried, our main objective was to make it as cheap as possible, and therefore they don't comply to drinking water standards. However, people still use it for drinking water, and I'm pretty sure it is safer than to use the surface water in the river. For contamination, it's for crocodiles. So yeah, officially it doesn't comply with the standards, but it will be used on a household level as a multiple use water source, including drinking water. If you want to make sure that the water quality is high enough, you need to take measures like you need to go deeper, you need to include sanitary seals, which is possible, but it will make the well more expensive. So that's not what we were looking for here. Peter van der Zaag. Mario Chilundo found that there were heavy metals in the Limpopo water coming from mines in the Elephant in South Africa. So we must be very careful using water for drinking. Ah, okay, that's very good to know. Again, then, yeah, I would expect that if you are on the field and you take it from the aquifer, yeah, you will find this as well, because we found that it is very much connected actually to the sand in the sand, or to the water in the Sand River. Please check questions here. Yes, okay. I think then I have covered them all. How can use these pumps for rice production? Sergio Ernesto is asking how to use these pumps for rice production. The pumps we have shown, you can only do a very small area, 2,000 square meters. So for rice production, which is usually on a much larger scale, I'm not sure, I don't think it's the most suitable technology. However, you can use the well points for this, and then you need to install a larger pump, a petrol pump, for example. So you can do up to 2 hectares. Thanks. Please, I need one. I'll write my email address in case anyone needs more information. That's here. Is there anything missing? Let's see. Whoops.
Thank you very much. So that was an interesting discussion overall, but I believe we are forced to move forward. And okay. I therefore leave the floor to the director of the Faculty of Agrarian Science in the University of Licungo, Dr. Sergio Alexandre Ernesto. Again, sorry for my pronunciation. And he is going to talk with us about the access and management of rural water in Zambezia, Mozambique.
I think that Giulio should share the, yes, exactly. And Sergio, I cannot see him.
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to join in this conference. My name is Sergio Ernesto from Licungo University in Department of Agriculture. I am a leader of this agriculture department. My presentation has 3 parts. The first one is an introduction for our university. The second, I talk about the potential of our Zambezia province. And the last part is I talk about activity in our university. Giulio, please, can you move the slide, please, for me? Okay.
Yes, Sergio, let me try to put full screen the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, now it should be. Is it fine?
I can see.
Let me.
Yes, Julio. Yes. Yes, thank you, Julius. Julius? Hello?
Yes. Should I change again or I leave this?
Okay, I think it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julius. Move the slide when okay. The first part I talk about our university. Likungu University is a new higher education situation in Mozambique, based in Quelimane, seat, Zambezi province. Was created in 2019, and they have around 14 students. We have 5 faculties, and one of these is agriculture science. The university is based by 3 pillars: teaching, research, and extension. Please, Julio. Hello?
Yes,
hello?
Next slide. Change again.
Okay, you was defined there are 3 areas: agriculture, education, and the conservation. Therefore, you know that university is committed by agriculture and conservation. Next slide. Julio? Okay, Julio, when I talk about the potential of our province, you see, when you know the Mozambique, Zambezi is a center province. Have main water research and rich hydrographic. These hydrographic feed by many rivers. For example, Zambezi River, Likungu River, Bon Sinai River, Likware, and another. The province has 3 different agriculture zones: low, medium, and high, and they produce many different cultures. You have 3 different types of soil: alluvial, red, and brown. When you see, you know that we have a few land by irrigation. And hello? Hello?
Sergio, go ahead. We can hear you.
Next. You hear me?
Yes, Sergio. We are on the slide on the hydrographic situation of Zambezia. Maybe you have a better connection.
Yeah, you hear me? Okay. Next slide, please.
So do you see the slide on the hydrographic situation of Zambezia?
The Zambezia have many research, but we have more problem, like frequent flooding and high rate of chronic malnutrition. Next slide, please, Julius.
Again, change again slide.
Hello?
Please go ahead, Sergio, Ernesto.
Yes, you are in. Hear me?
Yes, is it this slide okay for you?
Okay, I think Julie, you are very slow, please.
I mean, is this slide okay for you for talking?
Oh, in this slide, Zambezia, yes, okay. I talk about situation of Zambezia. I say that many water research, but don't use good this research. When you see Zambezia is a second large province, but if a hang bank in this province and the high rate of chronic malnutrition of this in these areas. Next slide, please. Yes. Now I want to talk you what university is doing about these areas. In the Faculty of Agriculture Science in Zambezia, we are interested about the water management, and we are doing more things in these areas. For example, we are built small system water dams in agriculture centers in Kwadala district, and we held a lecture talk about what happens by Dr. Giulio Castel from Florence University. Now we have 4 students from agriculture course that research about capturing and raising rainwater in the 3 districts of the province, Quelimane, Kwadala, and Namakura. We have a project to train farmer community about water havings. We have a hope to involve more students and more districts in this project. Now we are working for with irrigation project. The name is ProIR in Zambezia. That this project working in rice. We work with ISEI. We work with Manitens, ISEI. Now we try to implant agroforestry system, and in this system we need to join to use water having to irrigation these areas with the student. Okay. Surely over here, please, another slide. Hello? Hello?
Yes, I moved the slide.
Yes. I'm going to final, and I'm talking about this because English, I think my English is so poor.
No, it's fine.
Yes.
Just Sergio, tell me if I have to change again the slide.
Okay, go to final slide, please. Thank you, Jules. universities is interested to join
Sergio, do you want? We cannot hear you. Do you want to describe the final slide? I think you can use Portuguese if you want, because some people, they know Portuguese.
Okay. It's better talk in Portuguese, and you'll see in the slide in English.
Yes, yes. Just let's finish the presentation in Portuguese.
Ótimo, thank you. Muito obrigado pela apresentação, por juntarmos a essa conferência. Realmente, nós como Universidade de Congo, nós trabalhamos bastante, estamos preocupados no nosso terceiro pilar como uma universidade. O terceiro pilar é a extensão. E nós como uma universidade e faculdade de ciências agrárias, temos trabalhado muito na gestão e na captação de água. Neste momento temos muitos estudantes a trabalhar no sentido, com vários projetos, entre eles o projeto da Manitense, o projeto PROIR, não é? E a ICEI, que tem trabalhado conosco, e também o Instituto de Investigação Agrária. Nós temos desenvolvido, como universidade, não é? A questão na produção do arroz, na produção de hortícolas, na produção do feijão. Neste momento, 4 estudantes estão envolvidos com um projeto ICEI, desculpem, que é a montagem de um sistema agroflorestal, na qual a universidade, na qual esse centro está dentro da universidade, e temos 4 estudantes que estão desenvolvendo o seu trabalho final do curso nesta área. Nós também, como universidade, trabalhamos nos 4 distritos e temos feito abertura de furos de água e na questão da abertura de tanques.
Eu estou falando português.
Sorry? 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 Thank you. Então, em jeito de consideração, a província da Zambésia tem muitos recursos hídricos que nós acreditamos que esses recursos hídricos estão subexplorados e a comunidade precisa ser despertada no uso desses recursos para contribuir na qualidade de vida, na qualidade da vida social deles e, acima de tudo, fazermos um desenvolvimento sustentável. Nós, como uma comunidade acadêmica, eu acredito que somos uma chave essencial para a mudança da situação em que nós nos encontramos, principalmente na província da Zambésia, onde nós dissemos que temos vários recursos hídricos e esses recursos hídricos não são sendo explorados. Olhando para aquilo que é os pilares da gestão integrada de água, nós acreditamos que, sendo a água um recurso limitado, vulnerável e escasso, ele precisa já ser trabalhado no sentido de que não possamos um dia corrermos risco de estarmos sem esse recurso. Então, nós como já somos chave, porque o uso sustentável desse recurso vai melhorar muita coisa, principalmente na questão da produção. Nós, ao nível da Zambésia, principalmente na Baixa Zambésia, temos feito aquilo que é a necessidade de produzir cultura da segunda época. E com esta utilização sustentável das águas, acreditamos nós que podemos melhorar muito a produção e produtividade ao nível da província. Então, em jeito de consideração, é isso que nós temos feito em termos de universidade. O meu inglês é tão pobre, mas acredito que os cenários que nós temos possam melhorar e poderem levantar algumas questões daquilo que a universidade tem feito junto com os parceiros junto a comunidades, no sentido de garantir a gestão e acesso à água ao nível da Zambésia, ao nível de Quelimane. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. Is there any question?
Yes, I think there's just one in the chat. If you check the chat, Sergio, you can see it.
Yes, okay. I think no questions.
No, the last message is a question for you.
Elias Mavia.
Yes.
He said that I joined the presentation after I had said I would like to know what the current relationship. Okay. Now we have more partner, governor partner, and private partner. In the governor partner, we have a Direção Provincial de Agricultura and Instituto de Investigação Agrária de Mozambique. This is our partner in governor. And in private, we have a Manitense, and we are another partner university. Recently, we signed the agreement with the Florence University, and Universidade Pedagógica in Quelimane, and another university. We have a more partner. Another questions. Niki Chefe, sei em português, boa tarde. O que foi o pensamento do senhor sobre a inovação apresentada durante essa manhã? Bem, eu estou muito satisfeito e surpreso, principalmente com as apresentações feitas com Júlio, a apresentação feita sobre bombas solares. Nós, como universidade, acredito ser uma oportunidade para nós e por isso eu perguntei como podíamos adquirir, porque para nós, como universidade, é uma oportunidade para pesquisa. A nossa província da Zambésia tem 3 particularidades. Tem uma zona alta, tem uma zona média, tem uma zona baixa. A zona alta normalmente tem muitos problemas de água, mesmo água para beber. I drink waters. Tem muitos problemas. Então, nós acreditamos que com esses projetos, com a experiência que a universidade pode fazer com o uso desta bomba, acredito poderemos minimizar alguma situação da zona alta da Zambésia, bem como na zona média, no sistema de irrigação. Porque nós, ao nível da Zambésia, estamos muito preocupados em introduzir culturas de segunda época. Então, eu acredito que é uma oportunidade muito grande. Temos trabalhado bastante com o Júlio no sistema de captação de água e já temos estudado a trabalhar com ele no sistema de captação de água. Já é um sucesso para nós e acreditamos que este ano, se não fosse a questão do coronavírus, estaríamos muito longe com o Júlio nesse projeto. Então, para nós é uma oportunidade muito grande como universidade e apreciarmos essas apresentações todas. I think no questions.
I'm not sure if maybe Elish wanted to make the question again, because I think there was a moment in which we weren't not so much connected. Elish Mavir, would you like to pose the question again, maybe in Portuguese?
Yes. Should I speak or should I write it?
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sergio, I'm Mozambican as well, and
yes.
I'm sorry, I think I missed the first part of the presentation, but I was wondering about the relationship, the current relationship between the settlements or the people and the water. Do they pollute the water right now? Do they know the seasons of when it floods, and do they protect themselves? So I would really like to know how the people, the local communities deal with the water cycle and just in general.
Okay. Julio, can you explain for me these questions, please?
Okay.
Hello? Yes.
The question is about vou tentar em português. Las pessoas, ¿cómo está el rapporto tra las pessoas e la agua? Cómo las pessoas en Mozambique van a inquinar la agua?
Vão, qual a palavra?
Pollution, if they have pollution. So
Okay.
if you have pollution of the local people to the aquifers and to the rivers, and how you manage this?
Okay. Thank you very much for these questions. You know that here in Mozambique, you don't have more industry here. The big problem of pollution here, I better talk in Portuguese, it's about the garimpeiro, gold. It's a big problem of pollution in the river here. Neste momento, o governo tem trabalhado muito para resolver este problema, mas em termos de políticas nós ainda não temos assim políticas claras de poluição, porque os níveis de poluição que nós temos são bem baixos. I think that the level of pollution here is so low. O que o governo tem feito mais na abertura de fontes de água são furos que normalmente não tem essa componente. Então, as zonas urbanas é que já tem todo o processo de depuração das águas. Falo do Sistema Nacional, do Sistema de Abastecimento de Água, por exemplo, falo da FIPAC, que tem feito isso ao nível da nossa região. Então, este já tem todo o equipamento para garantir o controle desse processo de poluição. Mas ao nível das comunidades rurais, muitas das vezes nós temos fonte na área, temos furo, em que o risco de questão de poluição ainda é muito baixo para a nossa região. I think you understand what I explained, Julius. Hello?
Yes, Sergio?
Yes.
It's clear.
Okay.
There is another question from Alfonso. I would like to know what are the different types of work that you have in your project for access to populations. Do you want to translate?
I have another question here. It's
yes.
Here they help us, yes. You say that I would like to know what are the different type of work that you have in your project for access to population. Yeah, nós, como universidade, depois da apresentação da palestra do Geúlio Castelo ao nível da nossa universidade em 2019, estamos a desenhar um projeto na qual vai contemplar mais comunidades rurais, principalmente ao nível da região onde a universidade tem mais influência. Falo dos 4 ou 5 distritos ao redor de Quelimane. Estes nós pensamos, temos um projeto traçado por forma que possamos desenvolver todas aquelas tecnologias do processo de captação da água e o armazenamento para a conservação e o uso dessa água para diferentes fins ao nível da população. Então, nós como universidade estamos muito interessados neste processo e acreditamos que nos próximos meses, no próximo ano, logo que o processo de Covid-19 passar, nós podemos agregar a esse projeto que já foi aprovado ao nível da nossa Assembleia e acredito que vai ser um sucesso. E nós já temos isso em manga.
I think that Mario Chilundo wanted to add something about the pollution, I guess.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Mario.
Hello, Mario.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. I also joined a little bit late the seminar, but it's interesting the presentation that we have been following last minute, and I just wanted to add something about on the question of whether we have a relation between settlements and water pollution. I have to agree with what I think it's Sergio who was presenting, if I'm not wrong. Yes, Sergio. I have to agree with him that at the moment we mostly have what is causes of pollutions in our river systems. Basically, that is because we don't in the country have let's say big urban settlements along the rivers. We may find some of this in some of course river basins, this relation happening. Of course, when you have municipalities that they have their sewage systems discharging directly to the rivers, because they hardly have like a pre-treatment before this waste is discharged. So in those situations, yes, we can talk about a relation between settlements impacting water pollutions in this river system. But otherwise, we have, of course, the gold panning that Sergio was mentioning has a very problematic, situation in the central, especially in the central region of the country.
Yes.
In the research also that we have done, I think I saw a quote of it in the Limpopo Basin, which is further in the southern part of the country. We found that we have the transboundary transport of some of these pollutants, which are not related to settlements also in Mozambique. We're talking about heavy metals, but most important, all of them are related to gold pan in the region. But of course, you may find also a situation of cattle also that is impacting the quality of water sources, because it drinks also directly from them. So this also might be a source of pollution there. Industry is not yet a big deal.
Yeah.
We have some basin now that are still are starting to suffer a lot more pressure due to industry. I can name, for instance, the sugarcane industry now in some basin that is really affecting a lot the shore, the quality of water, because they do discharge a lot of contaminants that are affecting. So remarks on what Sergio was saying, which of course I will agree with him. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that it's a big area to research in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much all, also for the very interesting discussion at the end. I believe right now, however, is the time to leave the